Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Women of Golf Show. I'm Ted Odorico, and joining me is LPGA professional Cindy Miller, and we are your hosts. We're broadcasting live every Tuesday morning from 9 to 10 a.m. Eastern here on the blogtalkradio.com network, bringing you some of the best golfers, teacher professionals, and entrepreneurs helping to elevate women's golf. We're so glad you decided to join us this morning, so grab your coffee and let's get started. All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Women of Golf Show. I'm Ted Odorico, and right alongside, of course, is LPGA professional and Legends Tour player Cindy Miller, and we are your hosts here on the Women of Golf. Good morning, Cindy.
Good morning, Ted. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. We got a great show. It's very, very excited. We've got another winner from the Symetra Tour, Belac. She won just a couple of weeks ago, she won the Carolina Golf Classic. And she's also currently finished number one in the Volvic race for the card, and also Player of the Year. So we're excited to have her. And then a little bit later on, we're going to be joined by LPGA member and head women's golf coach of California State University, Gina Umeck. She's going to be coming back on the show. So I'm very, very excited. But let me just remind everybody, of course, the Women of Golf is brought to you by iGolf Sports Network and Golf Tips Magazine. iGolf Sports is a live stream broadcast and media production company providing top quality programming designed to attract the golfing enthusiast. And of course, Golf Tips, the game's most in-depth instruction magazine, offering insightful reviews on the latest equipment, tips from top PGA and LPGA teacher professionals, all designed to help improve your game from tee to green. So subscribe today. Go to golftipsmag.com. All right, Cindy, our first guest is waiting in the wing, and she's actually originally from Slovenia, but she's now residing in Durham. So we're excited to have her, and as I mentioned, she is the winner of the Carolina Golf Classic on the Symetra Tour and number one in the Volvic race for the card. So let's welcome Belac.
Good morning.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you for being on. So offline, we were discussing what you're getting ready for. Can you tell us?
Oh, yeah, I'm getting ready for the U.S. Women's Open, and that's going to be in Houston in the second week of December. So I'm really excited about that.
And they're playing it on two different courses. Can you give us some scoop?
Yeah, so normally the U.S. Women's Open is played mid-year, so now we have an issue with daylight, so they decided they're going to split the field and play in two different courses in Houston. So that's going to be a little different than any year before. But I've had experience before playing tournaments with a couple different courses, and it's going to be an interesting week, getting all this information in during practice rounds and figuring out how to play two different courses.
A real test, if you will. What are the two courses?
So they're at a Champions Club in Houston, in Texas. So we're playing both of them.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Aren't there some famous people that were members at Champions Golf Club?
I wouldn't know.
I believe it might be like Ben Hogan.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's where
really
the big old men used to hang out and solve the problems of the world, I believe. Am I right, Ted?
I believe you are right, yeah. Ben Hogan, I know for sure, and there might be a few others. I'm not. When it comes to golf history, I'm not an expert either. I need to brush up on it, but I believe you are right. I believe Ben Hogan was a member there.
Yeah,
but yeah, very, very excited.
I'm looking it up right now.
Yeah,
so that's kind of cool.
Very excited. Yeah, for sure. Let me ask you on a question here. I'm just going to butt in here for a second, and then Cindy, you can take back again. So tell us a little bit about your year out on tour. This year obviously was a little bit different with everything going on with the pandemic and that, but how did you find getting used to just, being out there in the professional circuit? How did you find it? What were some of the challenges that you found? And how long did it kind of take you to kind of get settled in a little bit?
I think the most challenging part was restarting to play competitive golf right after the pandemic and right after the lockdown. So I think my biggest challenge was just getting back into the feel of the game and getting competitive again. The golf itself, obviously, like I played college golf at Duke, so that was really high-level competition all the time, so that didn't change for me much. But getting used to travel and do it all on my own without my coaches organizing everything for me, that was a little different, obviously. But as I said, just like adjusting to everything after so many things that changed during the lockdown, I think that was the biggest challenge. Like, what are you allowed to do? What are you not allowed to do? And just it changed, I feel, the game itself, of the travel and figuring out how to do everything.
So what did you do? Let me just follow up. What did you do during that shutdown period? I mean, I can recall, like, Cindy and I have had the pleasure of interviewing the winners each season for several seasons now from Symetra. And we literally got started off this season, I think the very first event, and then the next event, it was shut down. What did you do during that period before they started up again? Obviously, I'm sure you practiced in that, but what did you do to kind of keep your game sharp, because you're not really able to compete in any tournaments for a little while? What were you doing to kind of keep your game on the up and up, as it were?
Well, first of all, like, I was still at Duke. I graduated in May, so the first 2 months were pretty much just doing schoolwork and focusing on that. And then as I was done with school, I started practicing a little bit, finding ways to get out on the course, on the courses that weren't shut. So I was really fortunate to meet some people down in Pinehurst that would invite me in to play with them. So I got a lot of rounds down here in Pinehurst. And just try to keep my game sharp, like played a lot on the course. Didn't really get on the driving range too much, and just try to play as many rounds as I could, just to like maintain a level of my game and play little games with myself, try to beat my previous best, or, just make it interesting out on the course. So I think that was the key for my game, to maintain it and then be able to transition into back playing professional golf and just golf in general.
Yeah, I think a lot of the young ladies were in the same boat as you. I think they took advantages wherever possible and just sort of went on with life until they were able to get back out there and compete. So very interesting. Cindy, go ahead.
What are the best parts of your game?
I would say putting. Putting's probably my best part. I don't really putt much. Like, I obviously don't hole as many as I want to sometimes, but I tend to stay away from three putting and making like big mistakes on the green.
That's awesome. So you just graduated in May.
Yes.
And you were trying to do remote school, and finish number one on the money list on the Symetra Tour. Is that correct?
Correct.
Are you kidding me? That's awesome. What the heck? What makes you so amazing? That's like awesome.
I think it was just my work ethics since I was very little. Growing up, I lived 45 minutes away from the nearest golf course. So my whole day had to be really structured, and I had to really focus on whatever I was doing at a certain moment. So I kind of brought that with me to college. Like I majored in statistics, which required lots of work. And then I kind of took it to professional golf. At first it was kind of weird being at home and not being able to do anything because of the lockdown. But then eventually, I think the work ethic is going to help me structure my day, even though I didn't have anything to do. So that was kind of like the whole thing that kind of kept me up there.
Oh my goodness! So, do you make lists? What do you use to organize your day? Do you use do you make a list? Do you use a platform online? What do you do?
I think it just comes naturally. Like, I don't really write down things. I'm not like a big like notebook person or a planner person. I just try to think, like what I have to do today, and then maybe start off with things that annoy me the most, like doing some emails, like maybe schoolwork back then, and then I just go from there, like I try to accomplish as many things as I can, and just figure out like when I'm going to practice and when I'm going to do other things. So it's more like, like a plan in my head rather than like writing anything down. But I just like try to keep myself accountable and accomplish everything I want to in a certain day. So.
Wow. That's awesome. Ted?
So, Anna, let me ask you, you talked about living close to a golf course back home. Who introduced you to the game, and at what age did you sort of get bitten by the golf bug, if you were?
Yeah, so I lived 45 minutes away from the nearest course, so it wasn't really like a natural choice to play golf. But my parents started playing when I was very little, and then kind of got me lessons because they thought it would be a good chance, spend some family time together on the course. At first, I hated golf, like absolutely hated it. I was an alpine skier, and I was racing until I was 14. So, and I played some tennis in the track and field, so I was just playing lots of sports. And then when my skiing career was kind of coming to an end, I started thinking about focusing more on golf. So it was kind of late that I really started like thinking that maybe I could play golf more seriously. Growing up, I wanted to be a professional athlete at first. I thought I was going to be a skier. So that competitive mindset kind of transferred to golf. So I kind of started focusing more at about like 13 when I got to the national team. And then it all went from there.
Tell us about the national team.
So I was, I think, one of the youngest people that ever got into national team. I was really fortunate. I was strong as a young girl because I played so many sports. So I could hit the ball far, most of the time even further than my 18-year-old colleagues. So that kind of helped. And I loved practicing short games. So that was kind of what brought me to the national team and brought the coach's attention. I played in my first World Team Championship when I was 15 and played it 3 times. So I was always on the very front of the national team, kind of like a steady person that like they relied on at championships. But it was really fun years. I got to play in lots of different countries all over the world, meet a lot of new people, and it's funny because now I'm meeting again people out here that I've played in junior golf. So I haven't seen some of them like maybe like 7 or 8 years, and now we're reunited. So that's kind of fun, like just the opportunities that I got through playing in a national team.
Wow. That's great. Now let me ask you this. What was the national team? Slovenia?
Slovenia, yeah.
Wow. And who else was on the team with you?
Some of them don't play anymore. I was much younger than everybody else, and now there's younger kids out there. But I mostly, like, when I met other people that were my age from other countries, these are the people that I kept in touch the most. So it was just fun times,
That's great. Ted?
So, Anna, let me ask you, to follow up from something you said earlier. You obviously like to be very structured. You're a statistics type of person, so you like to know the figures and the facts and so forth. Do you find when you're that type of a player that if you're out in an event and something doesn't go right, do you find that has helped you to sort of get yourself refocused?
Yeah, definitely. Like one of my kind of like beliefs is that if there's a certain average, like let's say I'm averaging so many putts, And if I'm putting worse than that, I'm still thinking, something's got to even out later in the round or later in the week to bring me down back to that average. And if something's like, let's say I hit 5 terrible shots, I kind of believe that 5 good ones are coming. So that kind of helps me. And also from in terms of what to work on in a given moment in my game, it kind of helps me think analytically. And maybe I had a lot of putts that round, but it might be my approach game's fault or my short game's fault. So I tend to be very structural in that aspect. So and to analyze my game and just analyze the conditions I'm playing in, and not freak out about little things and maybe try to fix something that's not worth fixing.
Hang on, I'm writing this down. Let me see if I get this right. So if I hit 5 bad shots, 5 good ones are going to come my way. I like that. That's a great way to approach. I'm gonna write that one down for my game.
Unbelievable. Yeah, that's like your statistics degree. Okay, no emotion. This is just the way it's all going to work out. I love it.
Yeah, I don't really put much emotion into golf because it could drive me crazy. So I try to thinking very, in terms of statistics and just very using my reason rather than my emotion on the course. So that kind of I think helps me in some tough situations.
Cindy,
yeah,
let me
what
just
a great
say
idea.
this. Yeah, that brings up a really interesting point because, for some players who are, much more emotional about their game, tend to get on, highs and lows. And when you're somebody that sort of looks and crunches the numbers, for lack of better words, and looks at it from a statistical standpoint, because, Anna, you know your game. You know what you're capable of doing. Certainly you're going to have some bad shots here and there. That's inevitable for anybody. But what's interesting about your approach is that by not allowing the emotion into it, you're basically able to dissect your game in such a way that if you do get into, quote unquote, a little bit of a slump, based on your previous play, that's going to change at some point as long as you stick to your game plan. And I think that's a really very way of looking at your game because, again, you're not allowing the motion.
Yeah, exactly. I think it also comes down to very little things, such as did I make a mistake of hitting a bad shot or was it a miscalculation mistake? So I tend to forgive myself bad shots that are made just because I hit a bad shot because I know I'm only human. But if I'm making tactical mistakes or misreading a putt, I know it's on me. So I would get more mad, maybe in that aspect. And let's say I'm keep overreading the putts. I know I'm overreading them. So maybe on next time I'll try to maybe underread it and hopefully that works. It's just looking at it analytically. Was it a bad shot, a bad putt, or was it a bad decision? So I think that really helps me putting things in perspective. I know I'm going to hit bad shots, but I can control not making strategical mistakes out on the course. So.
Well, and it helps you isolate, again, coming from that approach, it helps you isolate very quickly what the problem is. And, sometimes, some of the other players go through a whole round, even a whole event, not really they know their putter's not working or they know that their short game is not working well, but they can't really sometimes isolate it. And, what we've experienced here, speaking with some of the other young ladies, when they get into a bit of a funk, if you will, emotionally they get very down on themselves and start to lose some confidence. And not saying that, that can't happen to you, but I think you found a way to really sort of get around that. Would you agree with that a little bit, do you think?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And, for example, in some instances, that a part of your game is not working well. Let's say, you have a hard time chipping on a certain grass. Then I just try to play more conservatively, approaches to the green, so I would avoid chipping if I miss a shot. Or just putting myself in good yardages and good spots to get to the green if maybe I'm not feeling as good about a part of my game. But yeah, that analytical approach really helps me with maybe damage control. If you get on a bogey train and then you kind of want to catch yourself back around par, it just really helps me to play, to like realize what was off and fix that real quick on the course. Because then I can always go on the driving range and fix whatever didn't work, and get some confidence there. But during play, I think it's important to figure out how to score at the end of the day.
Yeah, you want to hop off that bogey train real quick, and that's definitely the way to do it. Cindy, go ahead.
I love the way you're seeing all this. It's unemotional. It's all about the facts. Let's pretend we've got 155 yards into a pin that's on the right side of the green. There's a bunker left front. Talk us through what you're doing to plan, prepare, and produce a golf shot.
Yeah, so let's say like I have 155 is my full shot with a certain iron, and it would probably be a 7. But if I'm feeling good and if I like the pin and like the shot, how it looks, then I would probably just go for it. But let's say like I'm like between the clubs, or wind is like blowing in a funky way, or just not feeling good about that shot in that moment, I would probably play conservatively. If we have like a tucked pin, I would play on the safe side and maybe like take a club more and swing it easy just to get it like above the pin if that's a safer spot, or maybe below the pin if that's a safer spot. So unless like I'm feeling 100% about a shot, I would usually pick slightly more conservative way to make sure I don't make a dumb mistake and then have to scramble for par.
So everything's about strategy and planning.
Yeah. If you're feeling good, go for it, even when I would. But, most of the times you're not going to feel 100% about a shot. So I just try to see, like, what are the odds? What is the safest way to still get me a possible birdie or a safe par?
Got it. Brilliant. Ted?
On a really when I hear you talking about your game, it's very reminiscent of some of the best players in the world, a.k.a. Jack Nicklaus, Annika Sorenstam, Tiger Woods. They were all very analytical in their game, and put a lot of thought into it and played a game. Jack Nicklaus famously said that certain holes didn't fit his eye, so he changed his strategy for that particular hole. And then when he got back to the next hole and it now suited his particular style of play, then he could be a little bit more aggressive. So, those are the telltale signs, I think, of a true champion. And, because they look at things a little bit differently than everybody else. And I think you're on a great train, if you will, or track with your your type of play, because when you can remove a lot of emotion out of it, then you're not, as you pointed out earlier, you're not as hard on yourself when you do have some hiccups here and there. You're able to analyze, understand very quickly what the problem is. If it's a change you can make right away, great. If not, you deal with it when you get off the course and on the range. You can work things that way. But sort of skipping beats here for just a second, I want to go to when you're off the course, when you don't have to have that analytical brain going and playing golf. Do you then sort of flick the switch and say, okay, now this is just me time. I'm going to go out and do whatever it is I want to do, have some fun, whatever. I don't have to worry about focusing on my game right now. I'm just going to go out and be a young woman and just have some fun with friends. And I know this year has been a little tough with the pandemic, but as you look back in little different times, is that something that you're able to do fairly easily?
Oh yeah, when I'm off the course, like I don't think about golf. I don't want to talk about golf, or I kind of take it as like my job. So I think it saves me a lot of energy when I do come on the course and I have to focus. I'm fresh, so I'm not like overthinking it off the course. And I like to just, spend some free time. I love the gym. I do some Olympic weightlifting on the side just to like keep myself strong. I absolutely love going to the gym. And then I'm more of an introvert, so I like to stay home, and like maybe watch some Netflix or just like recharge my batteries. So I think I just like like to keep a good balance. You know, sometimes I would hang out with my friends. I still live next to college, so a lot of people that I went to college with are still around there. So that's really nice to come back home and feel like me and not necessarily a professional golfer, but just me, like friends who knew me before. So I don't have to talk about golf all the time and can just focus on being me, you know. So I really like that.
Well, I think the Blue Devils are missing you. Boy, I'll tell you. What a great young lady. Wouldn't you agree, Cindy?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You just keep that mindset, and it's like, ho-hum, here we go. What's next? I absolutely love your mindset. You're going to do amazing things and hopefully
really
have a lot of fun doing them. Yeah, this is awesome.
I couldn't agree more. Well, Anna, we want to thank you very much for joining us this morning. We've got to part ways, but good luck in the U.S. Open. I have no doubt that you're going to do very, very well, and good luck for next season as well when you get back out there, and hopefully everything will kind of get back to somewhat of a normalcy that you can get out there and play a full schedule. But thank you very much for stopping by and talking a little golf with us this morning here on the Women of Golf Show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Good luck, honey.
You're very welcome. Congratulations. All right. Bye-bye, Anna. You know, Cindy, just before we bring Gina out here, I just wanted to mention, you know, it's interesting, and I think there's a lot of truth to you know, what I said. You know, when you look at some of the really high-caliber players, I mean, there's lots of winners, obviously, out on the tours, but if you look at the ones that really sort of push ahead, I would say, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe there's some that aren't in that category, but wouldn't you agree that most of them tend to be very, very analytical and really focus on those types of things as opposed to be more of an emotional player? What are your thoughts?
I can tell you through all my research, those who are more laid back and unemotional and ho-hum, and if you would, the SC personality rather than the DI. So this girl is definitely an SC or a CS because she majored in statistics. They make the best tour players, that personality style. How would I know? Because I'm married to one, and I'm the opposite. Yeah. I'm the DI. So Tiger would be probably a DI with a little bit of C in him, but the loud motor mouth person who can't focus, they're going to have a harder time on tour. This girl's got the greatest mindset. This is awesome.
She reminds me a lot of Annika Sorenstam in her personality. Annika was very much, especially early on in her career. I mean, towards the end, she kind of, you know, loosened up a little bit and was, you know, a little bit more. But when you go back and you look at Annika when she was first out on tour, I mean, she was so laser focused in her game. Every shot, there was precision to her shots. You know, there was very little emotion. You know, if she did have a bad shot, you didn't really, unless you actually saw the shot, you would have never known. Her emotions never very. Now inside, she may have, you know, been ripping herself apart. Who knows? But I don't know if you saw that or not, or if you see the comparison. But I think she's very, very much like an Annika Sorenstam. Now, whether she gets to the same level or heights, that's up to her. But do you see what I mean? Like, she just very, again, as you said, her personality is I would almost say almost stoic. What do you think?
Yeah. It's like, okay, how do we figure this number out, right? I mean, it's just, there is no it's all facts, which is going to make her so much better. I figure if I miss 3 shots, I'm going to hit 3 great shots. There you go.
Yeah, exactly.
Her beliefs.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think it goes to, like she said, it goes to the confidence. You know, she can get out there, she can compete, and she knows that if a certain part of her game, like she said, her putting, you know, is the better part of her game, but if it lets her down a little bit, she's going to play the percentages. She knows that, you know, based on the numbers of her game, that she's not going to 3-putt as much, and so she knows she'll get it back at some point. Very, very interesting. we've interviewed, as I mentioned to her, we've interviewed a lot of the young ladies on here, but I think that's the first one I've ever heard that really approaches it from that aspect. I don't think I've heard any of the others, at least not that I can recall. But very, very interesting. Be interesting to watch her career as she moves forward. All right, it's time to bring on our next guest. Of course, she was with us just a little while ago, Gina Umeck. She's a member of the LPGA, and she's also the head women's golf coach for California State University. Cindy, let's welcome Gina back to the show.
Good morning.
Hi, Cindy. Hi, Ted. How are you?
We're doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well enough. Well enough.
Really?
I don't know. Is anybody really doing well right now?
I'm doing well.
I think golf. I think golf in general is
weird.
doing well. Yeah, as a business, I think golf in general is doing well. I always kind of feel a little guilty these days saying, "Oh, I'm great," I mean, for purposes of social graces, of course, things are fine. But yeah, I'm doing well enough. I'm, I think we have it better than most in the golf industry. At this time, certainly golf is just absolutely booming. So,
yeah,
a really good thing that's coming out of it.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Gina, I stopped feeling bad months ago. I was like you. You don't want to be out there bragging, because a lot of people, obviously, as we know, are going through a very difficult time and have been. Golf, as you pointed out, and we all know, has really gotten as I've said before, a booster shot in the arm, really, in so many ways.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit, difficult to go out there and, be like Dorothy, clicking your heels together and be excited about, what we do. But, that sometimes happens. And, I've just got to the point. I'm not going to feel bad anymore just because golf is doing well, because we've had our fair share of downs as well. So, but let me ask you.
Yeah, we sure have.
Over the years, there's been ups and downs with every industry, but golf has, had lots of people coming into the game, but we've had quite a few leaving the game as well for various reasons. And so this has really been a like I said, a booster shot. Let me ask you the first question, just because you can sort of approach it from this side. What's sort of the current state of college golf right now with everything going on? I know there's a lot of uncertainties. What's the schedule going to look like for next year? Do you know yet? Are you playing?
Yeah.
Give us an update on what's happening.
Yeah, and I think that's also partially responsible for my my lukewarm response. I certainly didn't mean to. That was all in jest, of course. The state of athletics is just couldn't be more uncertain in so many ways, Ted. The Ivy League just called off winter sports, and they tend to be sort of the pace setter. Certainly the SEC did not follow suit back in spring. Like the SEC, they were going to play college sports, period, end of story, never wavered. So they did not follow suit, but the Ivy League just called off winter sports, and they said they weren't going to make an announcement about spring sports until something like March. So that was the first sort of earth-shattering report we got on somebody making a move for the upcoming seasons. And like I said, they were always kind of the first to go. And we don't know. I currently don't, a lot of college coaches don't know if they're even going to be able to practice in January and February.
Wow.
If much less have competition, right? And there are international players, that are in their home countries. Should I fly in? Should I not? Should I get an apartment? Should I not? So it's like completely uncertain, and we're like, middle of November right now, and I have no idea what I'm going to do in January. But
Yeah, and
we're still a
yeah, a lot
sport.
of the states.
You know, we still exist. They're going to
Right.
school.
Well, a lot of the
I'm
states have,
responsible, for them to get good grades and things like that.
yeah, and a lot. What I was going to say was a lot of the states. I know Chicago has done that, and I'm sure California as well. But have now just initiated a stay at home. So you're right. A lot of international players are uncertain should they come over or not. Are they going to, what restrictions are they going to face? It's very uncertain not only for you as a coach, but for the players as well. What can they do? What can't they do? Are they going to have events to play in, or are they just going to kind of, sit at home with some popcorn and watch Netflix for the next, 3 months, or what's going to happen? What do you say to your
exactly.
team? What do you say to your team? Because there is a lot of uncertainty, or what can you say really? Because you don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I can't specifically talk about CSUN and just because of recruiting rules,
Sure.
but coaches, I think, are delivering. Coaches are trying to be as positive as possible, and encouraging, and really encouraging on the mental health side, because nobody is on Zoom for 6 hours, up to this point, all day in classes and other meetings. Of course, during this time they have like a slew of other meetings, right? They're not just going to class. It's like they've got academic check-ins, and they've got strength and conditioning check-ins, and they've got mental health check-ins, and it's like these check-ins are coming out of everywhere. So it's just another 30 minutes, hour on Zoom. So I think all coaches are just trying to be as positive as possible, and what else can you be when you're the leader and you're supposed to have all the answers and you have literally nothing to say. You have no answers. Trying to make the best of that time, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be filled up with golf. Try to make the best of this time. When else are you going to have this sort of cloaked opportunity, right? To be really have no obligations outdoors. You have school, obviously, that is your primary obligation right now, but when are you going to have this time to devote to yourself in different types of ways?
Yeah, no, so true. It's very difficult, and I imagine, obviously it's difficult for someone like yourself that's in your position, but more so for the young ladies on the on the teams. They want to get out there, just like our last guest. She wants to get out there. She wants to compete. She wants to play. That's what she's there for, on tour. And, they've had a shaky season. They've played, out of, I think, 20 some odd events on the Symetra Tour this year. They only played about 10. A lot of uncertainty. And then now, as I just mentioned, with many of the states considering going back into some form of a lockdown, I mean, who knows what the new year is going to look like. So it's very uncertain. And, you can only handle so much school and academia for so many hours a day without having some sort of release. I know I can go back in my mental Rolodex and I couldn't handle much more than, 6-7 hours a day and not have some sort of a release when I got home. Cindy, go ahead. I know you've got some questions.
How many students did you have that came back, seniors coming back for another year? Any?
I did, Cindy. I had one come back for a 6th year. And this is, I mean, what kind of a year really is this? It might not even be.
Yeah, it's worse than last year.
Yeah, it's almost, she's just kind of getting a expansion on her degree, which is great. That's fantastic.
So you have not played any events?
No, the Big West has not played any events, which is my conference. Other conferences, like I said, are obviously out there playing the SEC. But if you think about the whole picture of what it looks like to be actually playing right now and all the testing that's happening and all the isolation, and I don't know that it's a really pretty picture. I'm not exactly sad that my athletes are where they are, being, isolated in a dorm room and being on Zoom for 6 hours. You can't see anybody else. I mean, would it be better to be home with family? Getting tested multiple times. It's just, honestly, Cindy, it's not a pretty picture in going through all these protocols that you have to go through in order to even practice right now.
So let me ask you this. If the season's canceled for next semester or quarter or whatever you've got going on, could these students decide to go home and do remote school?
Yeah, most students right now are home. They are not at school, or they're not near the university if they have apartments or dorms or whatnot. Only certain sports that are practicing and competing currently are on campus, on the various campuses. So, the majority of students are in their home countries or in their home states already.
When did they go there?
They just never returned for the fall.
Oh, they didn't?
Yeah, everybody for the most part, most schools, their students, their student athletes went home in March when everything happened, and they just never returned.
And didn't come back. Oh, wow.
Correct.
We've got a student that we teach, and she's at Towson University. And again, I mean, part of me, if my kids are, out of college and have jobs now, but part of me was like, you know what, I got news for you. If I was paying $60,000 or $70,000 a year and you couldn't play golf and, you'd be home with me and you'd be transferring, which is terrible to say, but I mean, I don't need to pay $60,000 a year for you to learn on Zoom. And then what happens to all the schools? I mean, it's just, no offense, but this virus or the vaccine's got to come out. Like, it's got to come out, like, fast.
Right. And you're not unique in your, that's very much what people are thinking and doing, what parents are thinking and doing, and that's very much what's happening. I think in football, when the conferences decided to go forward, with the exception of the Big Ten and the Pac-12, they really kind of dug their heels in terms of safety, and they did not want to go forward. And ultimately, if they didn't decide to go forward with the rest of the conferences, all their players would have transferred, right? The conference and the football teams would have dissolved. These kids want to go pro and they want to get noticed, and there's not a loyalty like there used to be, really, where it's like, let's stick it out with coach. There's so much money riding on the line for these kids to turn pro that they're not going to mess around. If they can't play at UCLA in the Pac-12, they're going to go to Auburn, or they're going to go, to the SEC or try to get in there so they can play. So you hit the nail on the head, Cindy. Absolutely, that's the danger. And my conference, or the Big West, being in one of the most cautious protocols, it doesn't necessarily bode well for Big West schools.
I don't think I even understood this. That's terrible. Ted, go ahead.
It's a very precarious situation because really, on one hand, we all want to be responsible, but at the other hand, too, is you cannot just, bring your life to a screeching halt. And you're right. Gina, with the kids, I mean, I'm in the South, so I know what you're talking about, the SEC. I mean, and I happen to be, by the way, an Auburn fan, so we're glad to have you at Auburn. But War Eagles. But anyways, a lot of these kids, they want to get out and play, and you're right, they want to get noticed, and they want to pursue their career. And if you think about some of these kids that have as Cindy pointed out, that are spending, the parents or what have you are spending, tens of thousands of dollars to get them into some of these great colleges and universities, only to basically sit there in a Zoom call for 6 or 7 hours a day, and not be able to get out there, get noticed, or what have you. That's very, very difficult to wrap your mind around. And you as a coach, even have a tougher job because, like you said, what do you say to them? I mean, you try to be positive and you try to do that, but what do you say to them? Hey, I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is, and we're all going to have to just deal with it. They don't look at it the same way. They're like, hey, I'm pretty healthy. I want to get out there. I want to play, and I'll take my chances. And you don't want them to be irresponsible, but at the same time, I think of as a kid, some of the stuff we got into, and the toxicity, and we all managed to survive. I think we have to really look at this from a different key. But enough of my diatribe. Let's get back into golf. But so when you're in a situation, Gina, like this, and let's say you've been playing and you've really crafted your game, and then suddenly you have a season like this, what do you do to sort of keep your gains, if you will? And by gains, I mean keep your ability sort of up to snuff when you've had a lot of downtime like this. What do you do to keep your game sharp?
Yeah, definitely. Luckily enough, there's been some people who have really pivoted on this opportunity. The GCAA, which is the Golf Coaches Association, has hosted some events, has run some events, because then there's the issue of schools themselves not wanting to host because of all the liabilities associated with it. So there's been some entities that have really pivoted in taking the bull by the reins and just hosting events, host a college event, invite college players, and they've completely filled up. It's kind of like where it's at right now. Right. If you want a secret little fundraiser moneymaker, just host a college event in a COVID area or whatever. So there have been opportunities. There are opportunities to do that. Like anything else, I kind of think of it as, well, what if you even didn't have that opportunity? What if you can't spend $300 on an entry fee or whatever they're charging? You have to figure out ways to keep yourself sharp. When I was playing on Symetra Tour and doing that kind of thing, I mean, there weren't as many events then, so you had this sort of like long off season. You had once in a while somebody would like kick us an event in like late October or something. But you had sort of this long off season, and you had to figure it out. You had to figure out how to stay sharp and how to simulate being in competition. You got to, I sort of come from more of that mentality as a person. I'm not talking about coaching really, but let's figure out how this is an opportunity, and let's figure out how to challenge myself. But yeah, Ted, there are events out there, and they're filled up and popular.
Well, like you said, I mean, people just want to get out there, and golf has as I said earlier, has really benefited. It's sad to say, you hate to put it in that context, but the truth of the matter is it has benefited from this pandemic, because it does, have that sort of social, built-in social distancing, if you will. They've had to make some adjustments and modifications, of course, but I mean, golf courses are, have been booming through the summer months and that, and still golf instruction has, I know many people, Cindy can probably attest to this as well, who, have really filled up their lesson tees, or lesson plans, if you will, just because of so many people just wanting to get the heck out of the house and have something to do. And golf was one of the few respites, if you will, of being able to do that. Let me just ask one more thing, and then Cindy, I'll hand it back to you. What are some of the challenges? Let's forget, the season. Let's put the season, out of the picture, and just, any season we can pick from. what are some of the challenges that you find as a teacher?
Okay, as an instructor and exclusively?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, just in general, right?
Yeah.
I'd say the biggest challenge is really the student who sees the lesson as the practice. So, and we all, as a teacher, we have to accommodate whatever time this person is willing to put in. That's part of the role. You can't, as an instructor, just continue to harp on how your students don't practice. Obviously that's ideal, and that means they're invested. But a lot of people, they see the lesson as the practice, and I have to understand that that's all they're going to devote to it. And I have to tailor the lesson around like a Band-Aid, And, as the LPGA teachers, the philosophy is very student-centric. Well, I have to accommodate that student. I have to accommodate the student who truly believes that this is the time that they're giving to make themselves better, is the lesson, and nothing outside of that. Then they're going to go play, right, Cindy? This is like 80% of golfers, right? They take a lesson and then they go play. And how much time are they on the practice piece? So Ted, that's like the biggest challenge for me is to come from a philosophy of actually really want to make this player better, and having things for them to do before the next lesson, and not being able to go down that road, because they're not going to devote the time, which is their choice. Again, it's neither good, bad, nor indifferent, but that is the challenge for me, is to sort of give people the quick fix, give them the Band-Aid, not go down the rabbit hole at all. That's the harder thing. And generally when it's like that, I try to focus more on like course management and things that doesn't require rehearsal, things that don't require rehearsal. But that's part of the job, that's part of the role, if you will.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And we all have had many students just like that. So, Cindy, go ahead.
Are you at a club and you're the golf? Tell us exactly what your position is.
Yeah, I'm in kind of a funky position as a college coach, because first of all, being in Los Angeles, when I was in Albany, I could really do. People are just different there, You come up and practice here every day. Have the team up here every single day at the same club. It's like totally unheard of down here in LA. People don't want to see us from one day to the next, 2 days in a row. I have like 15 different facilities I have to use because I have to go unnoticed. And so the teaching part of it, in Albany, I teach some lessons. I'm in a really weird spot down here where I have summers off. I have 2 months off in the winter, month and a half. But I can't really hang my hat anywhere. And so I've had to kind of, bounce around, if you will. And recently I've looked into more of, we're all contingency planning right now. So I've looked into something more permanent. I have been offered positions, but again, I don't know what's happening, right? I don't know what's happening for the future of college athletics. And so I've hesitated to take on, those roles. So since I've been out here, I've really had to just kind of bounce around. I did I was teaching at Porter Valley Country Club for for a short while. But then, as I said, I get into my season, I don't have time. It's a full-time job anymore. You can't be a professor and a golf coach, a professor on the side or teach a class on the side. It's a full-on deal. So I've had to kind of bounce around a little bit, but always wearing many hats with my team. I'm a resource for them constantly. So
how many players do you have on the team?
It is what it is. I've got 9.
Is that the perfect amount?
Yeah, 9's good. I like 8. If you start to get too many, it starts to kind of break up into factions, if you will. It's nice to have like 8 for unity, 7 or 8, but also have some competition for the travel team, to be on the travel team and things like that.
Do you hold qualifiers?
Yeah. I can't talk specifically about about CSUN, but coaches do hold qualifiers. There are also coaches who just pick the team, and don't, go off of the numbers, if you will. They'll just have the kids kind of play and then kind of get a feel for who's playing well, and they'll pick the squad. So there's a variety. There's a variety of strategies to determine the travel team.
Awesome.
Very cool. So I guess it's difficult, as you said. It's difficult really because you don't know what's going to happen for next season right now. It's very difficult for really to start working on any sort of a strategy because you really haven't had anything this year to draw from. So what do you do moving forward? I mean, you just sort of sit and wait and just, keep yourself as best prepared as you can, or what do you do?
I go on Blog Talk Radio with Ted and Cindy.
That's good.
Good answer. Well, you can come back every
smart girl.
I had a fun time last time. Why wouldn't I try to come back? It was a lot of fun. But no, yeah, I'm trying to busy myself with professional development and growing as a teacher, and I held a seminar for the LPGA teachers yesterday on the golfing machine. It was a lot of fun. Just signing up, trying to adapt to the virtual life and get better. Just make myself further myself in different ways.
That's great.
Well,
that's all we can do.
Yep.
Yeah. It it's, as I said earlier, it's been very tough for a lot of people, and even though we've had some very positive gains in golf in general, there's the other side of it, like your side of it, where from a collegiate standpoint, and obviously for a while on the tours, there was a lot of uncertainty, and we want to wish you the best, and thank you for that great plug. We appreciate that very much, and we're definitely going to have you back, and hopefully when we have you back, you'll have a better idea of what's going to be happening for your next season, and be able to give us an A++ on the report card, as it were. But Gina, as always, thank you very much. We're happy to have you as well, and we appreciate you coming on and sharing your thoughts, and we want to wish you nothing but the best for CSUN for 2021.
Thanks a lot, Ted and Cindy. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good one.
All right. Have a great week. You too.
You too. Bye. All right. Gina Umeck, head women's golf coach, California State University. Very, very sad, just on a quick note, and I know we're almost out of time, but, really when you think about the state of it, she's right. I mean, there's so many of these young girls and the guys too that really don't know what's going to happen, because of this pandemic and a lot of uncertainty, and a lot of them have, put a lot of hard work and blood, sweat, and tears, getting ready just to get to where they are, just to have it sort of come to a screeching halt. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I agree with you, Cindy. I hope that they get this vaccine and that out to the public ASAP, because I don't know how much longer a lot of folks are going to be able to deal with the way things are right now. It's just not going to happen. But
no.
On that note, yeah, you're right. It's just difficult. But we want to wish the best to everybody, and we want to also again thank Anna Belac for joining us, Carolina Golf Classic champion from the Symetra Tour, and Gina Umeck, the head women's golf coach for California State University. Thank you very much, ladies, for joining us early. And on behalf of Cindy Miller, I'm Ted Odorico. Thanks for joining us this morning on the Women of Golf. We'll see you next week. God bless everybody. Thanks, Cindy.
Thanks, Ted.
Thanks for listening this morning to the Women of Golf Show. Tune in live each week by visiting blogtalkradio.com/Women of Golf, or on any of these social media platforms: iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, CastBox, TalkStream Live, and of course Spotify. If you can't join us live, check out our on-demand section for previously aired broadcasts. To get updates for future shows and upcoming guests, you can follow us on Facebook at Women of Golf. You can also follow me on Twitter at Ted and Buck CEO, and Cindy at Cindy Miller Golf. Please remember to join us next week on the Women of Golf Show. See you next time. This has been a production of the iGolf Sports Network.